What if the hardest part of your life is not what happened to you, not what you lost, not what went wrong, but the way you speak to yourself when no one else is there? What if the real pain is not only the mistake, but the voice inside you that keeps repeating it? The voice that says you should have known better, you should have done more, you should be stronger by now, wiser by now, further by now. So many people are walking through life with a heart that is already tired, and yet they keep adding more weight to it every day. Not because life asked them to, but because they believe being hard on themselves will somehow make them better, safer, more worthy, more ready to be loved. But it does not work that way. A heart does not heal by being pushed down. A soul does not grow by being spoken to with cruelty. And if you have been carrying that kind of inner pressure for a long time, then this moment matters more than you know. There are people who look calm on the outside and still feel at war inside. They smile, they work, they take care of others, they do what needs to be done, and yet underneath all of it, there is a constant pressure. A pressure to get everything right. A pressure to never fall behind. A pressure to not disappoint anyone. A pressure to be useful, strong, calm, successful, healed, grateful, and perfect all at once. And when they cannot do all of that, they turn against themselves. They do not always say it out loud, but inside they become sharp. Inside they say, "What is wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I just get it together? Why am I still struggling with this? Why do I keep feeling this way?" And little by little, day after day, they become both the person who is hurting and the person who keeps hurting themselves. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you know what it is like to lie awake at night and replay something you said, something you did, something you wish you had done differently. Maybe you know what it is like to look at your life and think everyone else is moving ahead while you are still trying to breathe through things nobody else can see. Maybe you know what it is like to carry guilt for things that happened years ago and somehow still punish yourself for them in small, hidden ways. Maybe you know what it is like to be kind to everyone else and then go home and become your own hardest judge. If that is where you are, then let this truth enter softly. You do not need more pressure. You do not need more shame. You do not need another reason to be disappointed in yourself. What you need is gentleness. What you need is understanding. What you need is a way to come back home to yourself without fear. For so many people, being hard on themselves has become normal. It feels familiar. It feels like discipline. It feels like responsibility. It even feels like honesty. They think if they stop being strict with themselves, they will become lazy. If they stop blaming themselves, they will never change. If they stop pushing, everything will fall apart. But being hard on yourself is not the same as being honest with yourself. And pain is not the same as growth. You can learn without attacking yourself. You can improve without hating yourself. You can take responsibility without carrying shame in your chest all day long. There is a softer way to live, and that softer way is not weak. In truth, It takes great strength to stop repeating the old voice of blame and begin speaking to yourself with love. There is a deep spiritual truth that many people miss while they are trying so hard to fix themselves. The truth is this: you were never meant to become whole by breaking yourself down. You were never meant to find peace by speaking to yourself with fear. Life does not ask you to heal through punishment. Your spirit does not grow through harshness. Love is what heals. Love is what opens what has been closed. Love is what softens what has been tight for too long. Love is what lets light reach the parts of you that have been hiding in shame. And that love must begin inside, not someday when you have done enough, not when you finally become the version of yourself you are trying so hard to reach. It must begin now, right in the middle of your unfinished life, right in the middle of your human mistakes, right in the middle of your tired heart. Maybe no one taught you that. Maybe you were taught that value must be earned. Maybe you were taught that mistakes should be met with blame. Maybe you were taught to always do more, be more, carry more, prove more. Maybe love felt close only when you were doing everything right. And because of that, you learned to keep a tight grip on yourself. You learned to watch yourself closely, to judge yourself quickly, to correct yourself harshly. You learned to believe that if you were not hard on yourself first, life would be even harder later. So you built an inner voice that stays on guard all the time. A voice that believes it is protecting you. A voice that thinks criticism will prevent pain. A voice that believes pressure will create peace, but it does not. It only creates more fear. It only keeps your nervous system tired. It only makes your heart feel like a place where you are never fully safe. Think about how different life would feel if your inner world became a place of support instead of pressure. Imagine waking up in the morning and not beginning the day with stress about who you are not yet. Imagine making a mistake and not turning it into proof that you are failing. Imagine having a hard day and not adding another layer of blame on top of the pain. Imagine looking at your life and not measuring your worth by speed, by success, by how perfectly you handled everything. Imagine what it would feel like to breathe without always feeling behind. Imagine what it would feel like to rest without feeling guilty. Imagine what it would feel like to hear a kinder voice inside, one that says, "You are learning, you are healing, you are allowed to be human, you are still worthy here." So much changes when that voice changes. Not because your whole life becomes easy at once, but because you stop making every hard moment heavier. You stop fighting yourself while trying to survive. You stop turning every weakness into proof that you are not enough. You stop making your healing harder by demanding that it happen perfectly. This is what many people do not understand. Being hard on yourself does not make pain cleaner or shorter. It makes it more tangled. It makes sorrow feel like failure. It makes delay feel like shame. It makes rest feel wrong. It makes healing feel like a test you are always failing. and the soul cannot bloom in that kind of constant judgment. The soul needs warmth. The soul needs patience. The soul needs a safe place to unfold. There are moments in life when being strong looks nothing like pushing harder. Sometimes being strong means stopping. Sometimes it means breathing. Sometimes it means not joining the voice inside that is already tearing you down. Sometimes it means choosing peace when the old habit is pressure. Sometimes it means placing a hand on your heart and saying, I will not make this moment harder than it already is. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is spiritual maturity. That is the beginning of a new relationship with yourself. One where you stop treating yourself like a problem to solve and start treating yourself like a person who needs love. Let this settle in slowly. You are not failing because you are tired. You are not broken because you are emotional. You are not weak because you need time. You are not behind because your path looks different. You are not less worth because some wounds are taking longer to heal. You are not wrong for being human. You are not a burden because you are still learning, and you do not have to carry every hard thing by becoming harder on yourself. You are allowed to soften. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to begin again without punishing yourself for how many times you have had to begin. Life has a way of teaching through gentle truth, but many people cannot hear it because the noise of self-criticism is too loud. The heart keeps trying to speak, but the mind keeps interrupting with blame. The spirit keeps trying to breathe, but fear keeps tightening the chest. The deeper wisdom inside you has not disappeared. It is still there. It has always been there. It is the quiet place in you that knows healing does not come from attack. It is the quiet place in you that knows peace is not earned through exhaustion. It is the quiet place in you that knows you were made for more than survival and self-punishment. And maybe today, for just a few moments, you can let that quiet wisdom speak louder than the old pressure. There is no peace in always standing against yourself. There is no freedom in becoming your own hardest burden. And there is no love in speaking to yourself in ways you would never speak to someone you care about. If you would not look at a hurting person and say, you should be over this by now, then why say it to yourself? If you would not tell someone who is trying their best that they are never enough, then why keep repeating that to your own heart? If compassion makes sense for everyone else, then it must also make sense for you. Your pain does not become less important because it belongs to you. Your heart does not deserve less kindness because it is yours. In fact, the place where kindness is needed most may be the very place where you have given it least. So pause here for one quiet moment and notice what you have been carrying. The pressure, the guilt, the constant fixing, the fear of not doing enough, the fear of not being enough, the habit of turning every mistake into a reason to be disappointed in yourself. Notice how tired that feels. Notice how long you have been speaking to yourself from strain instead of love. Then notice this too. You do not have to keep living that way. You can choose a different voice. You can choose a different way of holding yourself. You can choose to stop being so hard on yourself, not because your life is perfect, but because your heart deserves peace. And maybe that is where everything begins. Not with one huge breakthrough, not with one perfect day, but with one softer thought, one kinder breath. One moment where you decide that healing will no longer come through punishment. One moment where you say, I have carried enough. One moment where you stop calling yourself a failure for being human. One moment where you begin to understand that the love you keep looking for in the outside world must also be given inside your own soul. That one moment matters. That one shift matters, because the way you speak to yourself becomes the place from which you live your whole life. So if you have been tired, let yourself hear this clearly. You do not need to earn the right to be gentle with yourself. You do not need to become perfect before you deserve peace. You do not need to have every answer before you are allowed to rest. You do not need to carry shame in order to prove that you care. You can care deeply and still be kind to yourself. You can want to grow and still be gentle with yourself. You can be honest and still be loving. You can face your life without turning against your own heart. And maybe today, maybe now, maybe in this breath, you begin to understand that healing starts the moment you stop being your own enemy. The main truth is simple, but it can change everything. Being hard on yourself does not help you heal. It does not help you grow in the deep, lasting way your soul needs. It does not create peace. It does not build real confidence. It may push you for a moment. It may scare you into action for a little while. It may make you feel like you are staying in control. But under that surface, it leaves damage. It leaves fear. It leaves exhaustion. It leaves the feeling that love is something you only deserve after you have fixed every flaw. And that is not truth. That is pain wearing the mask of discipline. Many people live with the idea that if they are not strict with themselves, they will fall apart. They think self-kindness will make them careless. They think gentleness will make them weak. They think if they stop blaming themselves, they will stop growing. But look closely at what harsh self-talk really does. It tightens the body. It fills the mind with stress. It turns mistakes into shame. It makes every step feel heavy. It teaches the heart that love is unsafe unless everything is going well. And when the heart learns that, it starts to hide. It starts to protect itself. It starts to close. Then even good things feel hard to receive because inside there is always a voice saying, not yet, not enough, not worthy. Real growth does not come from being crushed. Real growth comes from truth held with compassion. It comes from being able to say, yes, I made a mistake. but I am still worthy of love. Yes, I am still learning, but I do not need to hate myself while I learn. Yes, I have things to face, but I can face them without becoming cruel to myself. That is what healing looks like. It is not pretending everything is fine. It is not avoiding responsibility. It is not making excuses. It is standing in honesty without losing tenderness. It is choosing to correct without condemning. It is learning to guide yourself the way love would guide you, not the way fear would punish you. There is a deep difference between awareness and attack. Awareness says, "This hurt me. This needs attention. This pattern is not helping me. This choice was not right for me." Awareness is clear. It is calm. It is honest. It gives you room to breathe and respond. Attack says, "I always ruin things. I never get it right. I should be ashamed. I am the problem. I will never change." Attack is not wisdom. It is not clarity. It is not growth. It is pain repeating itself in a familiar voice. Many people do not even notice that they have crossed from awareness into attack. Because they have lived that way for so long, it feels normal. But normal does not mean healthy. Familiar does not mean loving, and repeated does not mean true. Your inner voice matters more than most people realize. It is not just background noise. It shapes the way you move through the world. It shapes your energy, your confidence, your peace, your body, your relationships, and even the way you pray for a better life. If the voice inside you is always saying you are late, wrong, failing, not enough, then even beautiful moments become harder to feel. Even rest becomes hard. Even joy feels temporary. Even love can feel suspicious. Because inside, there is always tension. Inside, there is always the fear that one mistake will take your worth away. But worth does not disappear because you had a human moment. Worth is not something you lose every time you struggle. Worth is not a prize at the end of perfection. Worth is part of your being. This is why love heals faster than criticism. Love does not mean you ignore what needs to change. Love means you create the inner safety needed for true change to happen. Think of a plant. It does not grow because someone screams at it. It grows because it has light, water, time, and the right care. The human heart is no different. It opens through safety. It blooms through kindness. It grows stronger where there is patience. But so many people try to make themselves flourish by using the very energy that keeps them shut down. They push harder when they need rest. They judge harder when they need understanding. They demand more when their spirit is already overwhelmed. Then they wonder why they feel stuck. It is hard to bloom in a place where you are always under attack. There is also a spiritual wound hidden inside harsh self-talk. At the deepest level, being hard on yourself often comes from the belief that you are not enough as you are. It comes from the belief that who you are now is not acceptable, not lovable, not safe to be. So you keep trying to improve your way into peace. You keep trying to earn the right to relax. You keep trying to perform your way into worthiness. But peace cannot be built on the idea that you are fundamentally not enough. Any peace built on that idea is shallow. It'll always be shaky because one mistake will shake it. One bad day will break it. One delay will make you question everything again. The only peace that lasts is the peace that begins with this truth. I am already worthy of love, even while I am growing. That truth may feel hard to believe at first, especially if you have spent years measuring yourself by achievement, by approval, by how useful you are, by how calm you stay, by how much you can carry without breaking. But your value is deeper than performance. Your spirit is deeper than your hardest season. Your worth is deeper than your latest mistake. There is something sacred in you that does not disappear when you feel lost. There is something whole in you that does not vanish when you are tired. There is something beautiful in you that does not need to be earned through suffering. And the more you remember this, the less you will need to keep using pressure as a way to feel in control. Being kind to yourself does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean giving up on growth. It does not mean saying everything is fine when it is not. It means changing the energy you bring to your own life. It means choosing support over shame. It means learning to speak to yourself in a way that helps you rise instead of collapse. It means saying, I can be better without believing I am bad. I can heal without hating who I have been. I can move forward without dragging shame behind me. I can learn new ways without making war against myself. This is not a small shift. This is a life-changing shift. Because once the inside becomes kinder, the whole path changes. A person who is hard on themselves often thinks they are being responsible. But responsibility without compassion becomes punishment. Discipline without love becomes fear. Honesty without tenderness becomes harm. You can tell yourself the truth and still hold yourself gently. In fact, that is the healthiest way to tell yourself the truth. Because when the truth is held with love, it opens the door to change. When the truth is held with shame, it often closes the door. Shame makes people hide. Shame makes people avoid. Shame makes people freeze. Shame makes people feel so bad that they stop believing change is possible. Love does the opposite. Love says, yes, this matters, and yes, you are still worthy. Yes, this needs care, and yes, you are still safe with me. Yes, you can do better, and yes, I will not leave you while you learn. So many people are trying to improve while secretly feeling unsafe inside themselves. They want peace, but they do not know how to talk to themselves peacefully. They want healing, but they do not know how to stop hurting themselves with their own thoughts. They want confidence, but they keep tearing down the one person who must carry them through life. That is why this truth matters so much. You cannot hate yourself into wholeness. You cannot shame yourself into peace. You cannot bully yourself into real self-love. Those paths only lead to more struggle. Healing begins when the voice inside changes from enemy to friend, from judge to guide, from pressure to presence. This is why spiritual healing often begins with the way you speak within. Prayer matters. Reflection matters. Rest matters. Faith matters. But the words you say to yourself every day matter too. If your prayer asks for peace while your inner voice keeps saying you are not enough, there is conflict inside. If your heart longs for healing while your mind keeps calling you a failure, there is tension inside. If one part of you is asking for love while another part keeps rejecting you, there is pain inside. And this pain is not cured by trying harder. It is cured by becoming softer. It is cured by becoming honest in a new way, one that does not strip you of dignity, one that does not make your mistakes your identity, one that does not confuse your hardest day with your whole worth. There is freedom in beginning to understand that self-kindness is not weakness. It is emotional intelligence. It is spiritual maturity. It is trust. It is the decision to no longer build your life on inner violence. It is the decision to create a home inside yourself where healing can finally happen. And perhaps that is the real truth so many people need. The life you want is not built only by working harder, trying harder, fixing harder. It is also built by loving yourself differently, by talking to yourself differently, by meeting your own pain with more wisdom than blame, by realizing that your soul needs compassion more than it needs another lecture. Take a moment and feel the difference between these two inner voices. One says, "Why are you still like this? You should be better by now." The other says, "This is hard, but I am here with you." One says, "You ruin everything." The other says, "You made a mistake and you can learn from it." One says, "You are too much, too emotional, too behind." The other says, "You are human, and this moment does not define your whole life." Which voice sounds like healing? Which voice sounds like truth held with love? Which voice creates room for peace? The answer is clear when the heart is quiet enough to hear it. Healing has a certain tone. It does not scream. It does not shame. It does not threaten. It speaks clearly, but it speaks with care. And maybe that is the truth you need to keep returning to. The voice of healing is not cruel. The voice of wisdom is not harsh. The voice of love does not humiliate you. If the voice in your mind leaves you smaller, more afraid, more tense, more hopeless, then it is not the voice you must follow. There is another voice available to you, a steadier voice, a wiser voice, a kinder voice. It says, "Slow down, breathe. You are not a problem to be attacked. You are a life to be cared for. You are a heart to be tended with patience. You are a soul learning how to grow. And your growth will go deeper, not when you become harder on yourself, but when you become brave enough to be gentle." Self-criticism does not always sound loud. Sometimes it is not a dramatic voice at all. Sometimes it is quiet, constant, and hidden inside normal daily thoughts. It shows up so often that many people no longer notice it. They think it is just how their mind works. They think everyone speaks to themselves this way. They think this pressure is normal, this blame is useful, this disappointment is deserved. But when you begin to look more closely, you see how much of life gets touched by it. You see how it slips into mornings, into work, into relationships, into rest, into prayer, into healing, into the smallest moments. It becomes like a shadow following everything you do. One of the most common ways self-criticism shows up is through replaying mistakes again and again. The moment has already passed, but the mind keeps bringing it back. You remember what you said, what you did not say, how you looked, how you sounded, what you should have done differently. You replay the conversation, you replay the choice, you replay the missed chance. And each time you replay it, the inner voice gets another chance to speak against you. It says, "That was foolish. That was embarrassing. You always do this. Why didn't you think first? Why can't you just be better?" Instead of allowing the moment to become a lesson, it becomes a wound you keep touching. Instead of learning and moving forward, you stay trapped in a circle of blame. This is not reflection. This is punishment in the language of memory. Another way self-criticism shows up is in the pressure to be perfect before you feel at peace. You may tell yourself that once you fix this one thing, once you become more organized, more healed, more successful, more disciplined, more attractive, more confident, then you will finally relax. Then you will finally approve of yourself. Then you will finally feel worthy. But that moment keeps moving because the voice of self-criticism is never truly satisfied. The standard always changes. You reach one goal and it tells you it is not enough. You improve in one area and it points to another. You carry so much already, and still it says more, better, faster, stronger. So peace keeps getting delayed. Love keeps getting delayed. Rest keeps getting delayed. Your own acceptance of yourself keeps getting pushed into the future, as if your heart must wait for permission to breathe. Self-criticism also appears in the way people talk to themselves after hard days. A gentle voice would say, "That was a lot. No wonder you feel tired." A wise voice would say, "You did what you could with the energy you had." But the voice of self-criticism says something very different. It says, "Ah, are you so tired? Other people handle more than this." It says you wasted the day. It says you should have done more. It says you are too emotional, too slow, too weak, too sensitive. And because this voice has been around for so long, many people believe it without question. They do not stop and ask whether this is true. They do not stop and ask whether this is kind. They simply absorb the message and carry it into the next day, which makes the next day heavier before it even begins. Sometimes self-criticism hides behind responsibility. A person may say, "I just want to do better. I just have high standards. I just do not want to become careless." And there is nothing wrong with wanting to grow. There is nothing wrong with having standards. But when the desire to grow is filled with fear, it starts to sound different. It becomes sharp. It becomes demanding. It becomes unforgiving. It no longer says, "Let me improve with love." It says, "If I do not get this right, something is wrong with me." That is when growth becomes tangled with self-worth. That is when mistakes stop feeling like part of learning and start feeling like proof of failure. That is when even good effort can feel empty because it never seems enough to silence the inner pressure. Self-criticism also shows up in comparison. You look at someone else and think they are doing better, moving faster, handling life more gracefully, healing more quickly, succeeding more easily. Then, without even meaning to, you turn that comparison inward and use it against yourself. You say, "Why am I not there yet? Why can't I be like that? What is wrong with me? Why does everything feel harder for me?" And once again, instead of honoring your own path, you begin measuring your worth against someone else's life. You forget that every soul has its own timing. You forget that every person carries hidden battles. You forget that what you see on the outside is never the whole truth. Comparison makes you blind to your own progress. It makes you overlook your own courage. It makes you disrespect the life you are actually living. Another common form of self-criticism is turning emotions into flaws. Instead of saying, "I feel hurt," you say, "I am too sensitive." Instead of saying, "I need rest," you say, "I am lazy." Instead of saying, "I feel afraid," you say, "I am weak." Instead of saying, "I am overwhelmed," you say, "I should be able to handle this." This is how people begin to reject their own inner experience. They stop listening to what their feelings are trying to say. They stop honoring what their body is asking for. They stop treating emotion as information and start treating emotion as failure. But feelings are not proof that something is wrong with you. They are signals. They are messages. They are invitations to pay attention. When you criticize yourself for feeling, you make it harder to heal what you feel. Criticism can also show up in relationships in very quiet ways. Someone gives you a compliment, and instead of receiving it, you push it away. Someone offers help, and instead of allowing support, you feel embarrassed. Someone is patient with you, and instead of relaxing into that kindness, you wonder when they will see all the things that are wrong with you. This happens because self-criticism teaches people that love must be earned and support must be deserved. So when kindness comes freely, it feels unfamiliar. It even feels uncomfortable. A part of you may want to receive it, but another part says, "No, not me, not yet, not unless I do more, become more, prove more." This is how self-criticism can quietly block love from entering. It shows up in the way people speak after small mistakes, too. A glass falls, a message is missed, a task is forgotten, and suddenly the words come quickly. "I am so stupid. I am such a mess. I always do this. I cannot do anything right." Notice how fast the jump is. A small event becomes a statement about the whole self. A simple human moment becomes a label, and labels have power. When you keep calling yourself careless, broken, foolish, hopeless, behind, your mind begins to believe it. Your body begins to carry it. Your spirit begins to move under that weight. Many people do not realize how much damage is done by the words they say so casually about themselves. But every word lands somewhere. Every word leaves a mark. Self-criticism also appears in the refusal to celebrate progress. You may have come a long way. You may have become wiser, calmer, stronger, kinder, more aware. You may have survived things that once would have broken you. You may be handling life in ways your past self could not have imagined. But the voice of self-criticism will still say, yes, but look how far you still have to go. It will take your progress and shrink it. It will take your effort and overlook it. It will make your growth invisible because it is too busy looking for flaws. This creates a painful feeling of never arriving, never being enough, never being allowed to feel proud. And without that sense of inner encouragement, the path feels lonelier than it needs to feel. There is also the kind of self-criticism that appears when life is already hard. A person is grieving, exhausted, stressed, confused, or heartbroken, and instead of offering themselves comfort, they add blame. They say, I should be handling this better. I should not still be upset. I should be stronger than this. I should be over this by now. But healing has no reason to obey harsh timelines. The heart moves in seasons, not commands. Pain cannot be rushed into peace through shame. When people criticize themselves for struggling, they make natural suffering feel like personal failure. They take a hard season and turn it into a judgment against themselves. That is how sorrow becomes heavier than it already is. Self-criticism can even appear in spiritual life. A person prays, reflects, tries to stay positive, tries to trust, and yet on the inside they are saying, I should have more faith than this. I should not still be afraid. I should be more healed by now. I should know better. Even the path of growth becomes another place where they attack themselves. Instead of spirituality becoming a place of comfort, it becomes another place of pressure. But true spiritual growth does not speak like that. True spiritual growth is patient. It understands that learning trust takes time. It understands that fear does not make you a failure. It understands that a soul can be growing even while it is still trembling. The divine does not speak to you with the same cruelty that fear does. Love does not guide through shame. Another hidden form of self-criticism is always assuming the worst about your own motives and efforts. If something goes well, you tell yourself it was luck. If you try your best and still struggle, you tell yourself your best is not good enough. If you rest, you accuse yourself of wasting time. If you set a boundary, you worry that you are selfish. If you speak up, you wonder whether you were too much. If you stay quiet, you blame yourself for not saying more. No matter what you do, the inner judge finds something wrong. This creates a deep tiredness because there is no safe place inside the mind. Every choice gets questioned. Every action gets judged. Every day feels like a test with changing rules. And perhaps one of the saddest ways self-criticism shows up is in how people speak to themselves when no one else can hear. In public, they may be polite. In private, they are brutal. They carry words inside that they would never say to another human being. They speak to themselves with a harshness that would break the heart if spoken aloud by someone else. They do not always notice it because they have been living with that voice for years. But if those private words were written down and read back gently, many would be shocked by how unkind they have been to their own heart. This is why awareness matters so much. You cannot change a pattern you do not notice. You cannot soften a voice you keep calling normal. The first step is not to become perfect in your thinking. The first step is simply to notice. Notice when you turn a mistake into an identity. Notice when you compare your journey with someone else's. Notice when you speak harshly to yourself for needing rest. Notice when you ignore your progress. Notice when you make your emotions into flaws. Notice when you refuse kindness, refuse help, refuse to believe good things about yourself. These are not small moments. These are places where healing is asking to enter. These are places where a different voice can begin. Because once you see how self-criticism shows up, you begin to understand something important. This voice is not truth. It is a gate. It is learned. It is repeated. It may be old, but it is not sacred. It may be loud, but it is not wise. It may feel familiar, but it is not the voice that must lead your life. There is another way to speak within, a way that is honest but kind, clear but gentle, strong but loving. And the moment you begin noticing how self-criticism has been living inside your days, you are already beginning to loosen its hold. Many people believe that if they stop being hard on themselves, they will stop growing. They think pressure is what keeps them moving. They think shame is what keeps them careful. They think harsh words are what keep them from falling apart. But if you look closely at what really happens, you begin to see a very different truth. Being hard on yourself may create movement, but it does not create peace. It may force action, but it does not build trust. It may push you for a little while, but it cannot carry you in a healthy way for long. A person can only live under inner pressure for so long before something inside begins to feel tired, numb, anxious, or defeated. And that is what so many people are feeling now. Not because they are weak, but because they have been trying to survive on criticism instead of care. Pressure can make the body move, but it often makes the spirit smaller. You may get more done. You may keep going. You may keep meeting deadlines, showing up, and doing what needs to be done. But what is the cost? If every action is driven by fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of disappointing others, or fear of disappointing yourself, then even success feels heavy. Even when you do well, you do not feel safe. Even when you achieve something, you do not feel settled. Even when people praise you, you still feel like you are one mistake away from losing your worth. This is what harshness does. It teaches you to live in tension. It teaches you to believe that rest must be earned through perfection. It teaches you that peace is always one more task away, and that is no way for the heart to live. Shame does not teach in a clean way. Shame confuses. Shame clouds. Shame makes people feel smaller than the moment they are facing. Instead of saying, "This action needs care," shame says, "Something is wrong with you." Instead of guiding, it labels. Instead of helping you understand, it makes you hide. Many people think shame helps them stay responsible, but shame often makes it harder to be truly honest. When people feel ashamed, they do not feel open. They do not feel safe enough to look clearly at what happened. They become defensive, avoidant, frozen, or exhausted. Shame creates so much pain that the mind starts trying to escape it. That is why shame does not lead to real healing. It may create fear, but fear is not the same as growth. Think about how a child learns best. Not through constant blame, not through being told they are wrong at their core, not through being shamed for every mistake. A child learns best through safety, patience, and clear guidance. The same is true for the wounded places inside you. The part of you that is still learning does not need more attack. It needs support. It needs truth spoken gently. It needs someone inside to say, "This did not go well, but we can learn from it. We can try again." We do not have to turn this into a reason to hate ourselves, and that someone inside must become you. Because if your own inner voice cannot offer you safety, then every mistake becomes heavier, every lesson becomes harder, and every effort feels like it is happening in a place of fear. Being hard on yourself also creates a false kind of strength. From the outside, it may look like discipline. It may look like control. It may even look admirable to others. But inside, it often feels brittle. It feels like you are holding everything together by force. It feels like one wrong thing could make you fall apart. That is not real strength. Real strength has softness in it. Real strength knows how to bend without breaking. Real strength can face truth without losing kindness. Real strength does not need to humiliate the self in order to create change. It knows that a person grows better in love than in fear. It knows that peace creates clearer choices than panic ever will. There are people who have achieved a lot in life while being very hard on themselves, and because of that, they think harshness works. But if you listen closely to their inner world, you often hear deep tiredness. You hear anxiety. You hear emptiness. You hear the pain of someone who does not know how to feel enough without doing more. You hear a person who has learned how to perform but not how to rest. A person who can push but not receive. A person who can succeed but not fully enjoy the success. This is why doing well on the outside is not always a sign that the inside is healthy. Some people look strong while secretly living under a kind of inner pressure that steals the sweetness from their own life. Another reason being hard on yourself does not help is because it keeps you focused on the wrong thing. Instead of asking, "What do I need right now?" you ask, "What is wrong with me?" Instead of asking, "What can I learn from this?" you ask, "Why am I like this?" Instead of asking, "How can I support myself through this moment?" you ask, "Why can't I handle this better?" Do you see the difference? One set of questions leads toward healing. The other leads deeper into blame. Healing asks what is needed. Harshness asks what is defective. Healing moves with curiosity. Harshness moves with judgment. Healing opens the door. Harshness closes it. When you are hard on yourself, you also lose contact with your real needs. If you are exhausted, you may need rest. But the harsh voice says keep going. If you are hurt, you may need comfort, but the harsh voice says get over it. If you are confused, you may need space and patience, but the harsh voice says you should know better by now. This is how people become disconnected from their own inner wisdom. They stop listening to their body. They stop trusting their emotions. They stop honoring the pace of their healing. They become so busy judging themselves that they forget how to care for themselves. And without care, even the strongest person begins to feel lost. Harshness also creates fear around mistakes, and fear around mistakes makes life smaller. You become afraid to try, afraid to speak, afraid to risk, afraid to be seen. Why? Because you know how severely you punish yourself when things do not go perfectly. So instead of living freely, you start living carefully. You hold back your voice. You second-guess your choices. You do not allow yourself to be a learner. You do not allow yourself to be human. But growth requires room for imperfection. Growth requires space for trying, missing, learning, and trying again. If every mistake becomes a personal attack, then the nervous system starts to associate growth with danger. Then even good opportunities can feel overwhelming. Many people do not realize that being hard on yourself can slowly drain joy from your life. Even beautiful moments become harder to enjoy when the inner voice keeps scanning for flaws. You could be doing something meaningful, something healing, something deeply good, and still the mind may say it is not enough. You could be resting in a quiet moment, and the voice may tell you that you should be doing more. You could be making progress, and the voice may remind you of how far you still have to go. This means life becomes difficult to enjoy because your attention is always pulled toward lack, toward pressure, toward what is unfinished. The harsh voice does not let you land. It does not let you fully arrive in the moment. It keeps moving the finish line, and because of that, the heart stays restless. This is especially painful because many people are already carrying enough from life itself. They are carrying stress, grief, uncertainty, disappointment, and hidden pain. Life can already be heavy. So when you add self-criticism on top of that, it becomes too much. It is like carrying a full load and then choosing to place more weight on your own shoulders. The struggle was already there. The challenge was already there. But now there is an added layer of blame that says you should be carrying it better. This is why so many people feel exhausted beyond words. They are not only dealing with life, they are also dealing with the voice inside that keeps turning every difficulty into a reason to be ashamed. There is another way. The better way is not to ignore your life, but to support yourself through it. The better way is not to deny mistakes, but to meet them with wisdom instead of attack. The better way is not to stop growing, but to grow in a way that does not crush your spirit. Imagine how different it would feel to say, "This was hard, let me be kind to myself here." Imagine how different it would feel to say, "I want to improve, but I do not need to punish myself into change." Imagine how different it would feel to say, "I am still learning, and that does not make me less worthy." That is the kind of voice that helps the soul stay open. That is the kind of voice that makes healing possible. The truth is, people do not heal because they are pushed down. They heal because they are given space to breathe. They heal because they are allowed to tell the truth without being attacked for it. They heal because they begin to feel safe enough inside to change. Safety is not laziness. Safety is not weakness. Safety is the ground that real healing grows from. When you feel safe inside, you can face more honestly. You can listen more clearly. You can make better choices, not because you are terrified, but because you are connected. And connection will always guide you better than self-hate ever could. So if you have believed that being hard on yourself is helping you, pause and look at what it has truly given you. Has it given you peace? Has it made your heart feel safe? Has it helped you trust yourself more deeply? Has it made healing easier? Or has it only made you tired, tense, and afraid of your own imperfections? Sometimes the truth becomes clear when we stop defending the old pattern. Sometimes the truth is simply this: what hurts you repeatedly is not helping you grow. What keeps your heart afraid is not teaching you peace. What makes you feel less lovable is not the voice of wisdom. And what steals your softness is not the path to healing. You do not need more harshness to become who you are meant to be. You need more truth, yes, but truth with love. You need more awareness, yes, but awareness without cruelty. You need more honesty, yes, but honesty that does not strip away your dignity. That is the way forward, not through inner punishment, but through compassion strong enough to stay with you as you change, not through pressure that makes you smaller, but through presence that helps you grow. And maybe today you can begin to see that being hard on yourself was never the answer. It was only the pattern, and patterns can change. There comes a moment in healing when you begin to understand that the problem is not only what happened to you, but also the way you have been taught to think about yourself because of it. Maybe you made mistakes. Maybe you were hurt. Maybe you fell behind in ways that still ache. Maybe life did not unfold the way you hoped. But none of that means you must keep seeing yourself through a lens of failure. None of that means your soul deserves to live under pressure forever. At some point, a shift must happen. A deeper spiritual shift. A shift where you stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and begin asking, "What if I have been seeing myself through fear instead of truth?" This shift matters because the mind can become so used to judgment that it starts calling judgment truth. It starts believing that the harsh voice is the wise voice. It starts believing that blame is clarity. But spiritual truth speaks very differently. Spiritual truth does not deny pain, but it does not reduce you to pain either. It does not deny mistakes, but it does not make mistakes your identity. It does not deny your humanity, but it also does not let your humanity become a reason to reject yourself. It reminds you that you are more than your worst day. It reminds you that your life is still unfolding. It reminds you that growth is not a straight line and worthiness is not waiting at the end of perfection. So much suffering comes from the idea that you must become flawless before you deserve peace, that you must become stronger before you deserve rest, that you must become more healed before you deserve love. But this way of thinking keeps the heart trapped. It says, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." It keeps kindness out of reach. It turns peace into a reward instead of a birthright. And when peace becomes a reward, most people stay thirsty for it because they are always finding one more reason to delay it. One more flaw, one more regret, one more thing to fix before they are allowed to soften. But peace does not enter through perfection. Peace enters through acceptance. Peace enters when you stop making war with where you are and begin meeting yourself there with love. A spiritual shift in thinking begins when you understand that being human is not the same as being wrong. To be human is to learn slowly, to feel deeply, to have strong days and weak days, to know some things and still be confused about others, to hope and fear at the same time, to heal and still have tender places. None of this makes you broken. None of this makes you unworthy. It makes you alive. It makes you real. It makes you part of the great human journey of becoming. Yet many people have been taught to treat their humanity like a flaw. They judge their emotions, their needs, their pace, their uncertainty, their process. They think being worthy means being untouched by struggle. But spiritual wisdom says something much softer and much truer. It says you are worthy even here. This is where the heart begins to breathe differently. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a problem to fix and begin seeing yourself as a life to care for, everything starts to change. Your mistakes still matter, but they do not define you. Your pain still matters, but it does not make you less lovable. Your growth still matters, but it is no longer fueled by self-rejection. This is what a spiritual shift does. It changes the ground beneath your healing. Instead of trying to rise by tearing yourself down, you begin to rise by supporting yourself. Instead of fighting your way forward, you begin to walk with yourself. And that changes not only how you heal, but how you pray, how you rest, how you love, how you forgive, and how you live. There is something sacred in realizing that life is not asking you to hate yourself into becoming better. Life is not asking you to stand against your own heart. Life is not asking you to earn your right to exist peacefully. The deeper wisdom of life asks for something else. It asks for your presence, your honesty, your willingness, your softness, your trust that growth can happen without violence, your trust that you do not need to become your own enemy in order to become your own teacher. That is such an important shift, because many people have confused correction with punishment for so long that they no longer know how to grow gently. But gentle growth is real growth. It lasts because it is rooted in love, not fear. Mistakes also begin to look different when this shift takes place. Before, a mistake may have looked like proof that you were failing. It may have felt like evidence that you were not enough. But with spiritual clarity, a mistake becomes part of learning. It becomes information. It becomes a moment that asks for awareness, not attack. It says, look here, something needs care. It does not say, shame on you, you are the problem. That difference is everything. One way of seeing leads to healing. The other leads deeper into pain. And so many people stay stuck because they are reading every human moment as a sentence against themselves instead of reading it as part of the path. You are still becoming. That is one of the most healing truths you can remember. You are still becoming. That means this current version of you is not the final version. This fear is not the final truth. This hard season is not the final chapter. This confusion is not the final answer. This weakness is not your whole identity. You are becoming. You are unfolding. You are being shaped in ways you cannot always see yet. And when you remember that, you stop demanding that today hold the perfection of the whole journey. You stop asking your present self to already be the healed self. You stop punishing yourself for not yet being where time and love are still taking you. A spiritual shift in thinking also changes the way you see delay. Before, delay may have felt like failure. It may have felt like proof that you were behind. But once your thinking softens, delay can become space. Space to grow. Space to understand. Space to become ready in ways you did not expect. Not every unfinished thing is a sign that you have done something wrong. Not every pause means you are lost. Sometimes life moves slowly because something deep is taking place within you. Something that cannot be rushed. Something that is asking for patience, not blame. And if you keep attacking yourself in the middle of that process, you miss the sacred work that is quietly happening inside you. This shift also invites you to stop measuring your worth by speed. Some people are hard on themselves simply because they believe they should be farther along. They think healing should have happened already. They think confidence should have arrived already. They think the pain should be gone by now. But souls do not bloom on command. Hearts do not heal on strict human timelines. The deep parts of life move with their own rhythm. And when you compare your timing to someone else's or to your own expectations, you forget that your path is your own. You forget that life is still working in you, even when you feel slow. You forget that slowness is not failure. Sometimes slowness is wisdom. Sometimes slowness is care. Sometimes slowness is the pace love chooses. As this spiritual shift deepens, another beautiful truth begins to rise. You do not have to earn your own tenderness. You do not have to become more acceptable before you are allowed to treat yourself with care. You are allowed to be gentle with yourself now, in the middle of the process. Now, while you are still figuring things out. Now, while some wounds still ache. Now, while some habits are still changing. Now, while your faith still wavers sometimes. Now, while your heart is still learning how to trust. This is what love does. It does not wait until the work is complete. It comes close while the work is still being done. And this changes your relationship with the present moment too. Instead of looking at the present moment and seeing only what is missing, you begin to ask what this moment is asking from you. Maybe this moment is asking for patience. Maybe it is asking for rest. Maybe it is asking for forgiveness. Maybe it is asking for honesty. Maybe it is asking for trust. Maybe it is simply asking for one kind thought instead of another harsh one. The present moment becomes less about judging yourself and more about meeting life as it is. And there is real peace in that. Not because everything is fixed, but because you stop using the present moment as evidence against yourself. The spiritual path is not about becoming cold, perfect, or untouched by struggle. It is about becoming more aligned with love, more aligned with truth, more aligned with peace, more aligned with the voice inside that knows how to guide without harming. It is about remembering that the divine does not see you through the same harsh lens that fear uses. The divine sees your heart. The divine sees your effort. The divine sees your wounds, your longing, your courage, your becoming. And if divine love can hold you with that much tenderness, then perhaps you can begin to hold yourself that way too. You are not here to spend your whole lives standing in judgment over your own soul. You are here to learn, to open, to grow, to love, to heal, to begin again as many times as needed. That is the shift, not away from truth, but toward a truer truth. Not away from growth, but toward growth that does not wound you. Not away from responsibility, but toward responsibility held with dignity and grace. And once that shift begins, even a little, the whole path feels different. Lighter, kinder, more spacious, more alive. Because the mind is no longer trying to become holy through punishment. It is finally learning that peace has always grown best in the soil of love. There is an old inner voice that many people carry for years without ever questioning where it came from. It sounds familiar, and because it sounds familiar, it feels true. It speaks quickly, often before you even realize it is there. It comments on your mistakes. It watches your delays. It reacts to your emotions. It measures your progress. It tells you when you are not enough, not fast enough, not strong enough, not calm enough, not healed enough. It becomes such a constant presence that you begin to think it is simply your personality. But it is not your essence. It is not your deepest truth. It is a voice that was built over time through pain, fear, pressure, and old beliefs. And what has been built can also be released. This voice may have been shaped long ago. Maybe it began with words you heard often. Maybe it grew in an environment where mistakes were not safe. Maybe it formed when you learned that approval came through performance. Maybe it became stronger after heartbreak, disappointment, or failure. However it formed, it learned one thing very well. It learned how to keep you on edge. It learned how to keep you trying. It learned how to keep you afraid of slowing down. And because of that, a part of you may even believe it is helping. A part of you may think this voice keeps you sharp, responsible, careful, and motivated. But look at what it has done to your heart. It has not made you feel free. It has not made you feel deeply safe. It has not brought peace. It has only kept you under pressure. The first step in releasing the old inner voice is noticing that it is a voice, not the truth itself. That alone is powerful. Because when you stop and say, "This is the old voice speaking," something begins to open. Space appears. Awareness appears. You are no longer fully inside the voice. You are observing it. You are recognizing it. And once you can recognize it, you no longer have to obey it automatically. You can begin to choose again. You can begin to ask, is this voice loving Is it wise? Is it helping me heal? Or is it only repeating an old pattern that has been hurting me for years? This old voice often sounds very sure of itself. It speaks as if it knows everything. It says, "You always do this. You never change. You should be over this by now. You are too much. You are not enough." But notice how absolute it is. Notice how it leaves no room for grace, no room for learning, no room for growth. It does not speak like a true guide. It speaks like fear trying to stay in control. And fear often uses strong language because it wants to sound convincing. But just because a thought is loud does not mean it is wise. Just because it is familiar does not mean it belongs to your future. There is also grief in this process, because when you begin to release the old voice, you may realize how long you have lived under it. You may begin to see how many moments were made heavier by it, how many mistakes became deeper wounds because of it, how many peaceful moments were interrupted by it, how many chances to rest, receive, celebrate, or soften were stolen by it. And that realization can be sad. It can hurt to see how often you have stood against yourself. It can hurt to realize that the person you have been hardest on is you. But this sadness is not a step backward. It is part of waking up. It is part of returning to yourself with clearer eyes. Releasing the old voice does not mean it disappears overnight. It may still show up. It may still speak. But now, instead of treating it like a ruler, you begin to treat it like an old habit, an old pattern, a voice from the past, not a command for the present. This is a gentle practice. The voice may say, "You are failing," and you may answer, "No, I am learning." The voice may say, "This should be easier by now," and you may answer, "I am still growing, and that is all right." The voice may say, "You are not enough," and you may answer, "I am worthy even here." This is how the new voice begins, not through force, not through pretending, but through repeated kindness, repeated truth, repeated remembering. Many people think they must fight the old voice with aggression, but that often only creates more tension. What helps more is steady, loving interruption. The old voice rises, and instead of believing it, you pause, you breathe, you soften your body, you place a hand on your heart if needed, and you speak something gentler into the moment. Not because you fully feel it every time, but because you are building a new way. You are teaching your heart a different language. You are showing your mind that there is another response available, one that does not deepen the wound, one that does not leave you alone in your pain. This is why simple replacement truths can be so powerful. When the old voice says, "I should have done everything perfectly," the new voice can say, "I am allowed to be human." When the old voice says, "I am too slow," the new voice can say, I am moving at the pace my healing needs. When the old voice says, I always ruin things, the new voice can say, one moment does not define my whole life. When the old voice says, I need to be harder on myself, the new voice can say, I need more love, not more pressure. These new words may feel unfamiliar at first, but unfamiliar does not mean false. It may simply mean they have not been practiced enough yet. Releasing the old inner voice also means changing how you respond after difficult moments. The old pattern may have been to attack yourself right away, to replay the scene, to judge your reaction, to tell yourself you should have done better. But now, a new response becomes possible. Now, after a hard moment, you can pause and ask, what do I need? Do I need rest? Do I need understanding? Do I need time? Do I need prayer? Do I need to forgive myself? Do I need to speak more kindly to myself right now? These questions shift the whole energy of healing. They move you away from blame and toward care. And care is what creates real change. It is important to remember that the old voice is not always dramatic. Sometimes it sounds calm, sometimes it sounds reasonable, sometimes it hides behind words like should, always, never, better, enough. But if those words leave you feeling smaller, more ashamed, more afraid, then they are not leading you toward peace. The old voice may wear many masks, but the result is often the same. Tightness, exhaustion, distance from yourself. The new voice may sound softer, but softness is not weakness. Softness is often where truth can be heard most clearly. Softness is where the nervous system can settle enough to receive healing. And there is a beautiful thing that begins to happen when you stop letting the old voice lead everything. You begin to feel safer inside. Not all at once, maybe, but slowly. You begin to trust that a mistake will not turn into an attack. You begin to trust that a hard day will not become a trial against your worth. You begin to trust that your emotions will be heard, not judged. You begin to trust that your own heart is becoming a safer place to live. This matters more than most people know. Because when you feel safer inside, you do not fear yourself as much. And when you do not fear yourself as much, healing can go deeper. There may still be days when the old voice is loud, days when you are tired, triggered, overwhelmed, or discouraged. On those days, do not make another mistake by judging yourself for hearing it. Simply notice it. Simply come back. Simply say, this is the old voice, and I do not need to follow it today. Even that is healing. Even that is freedom. You are not failing when old patterns return. You are learning how to meet them differently. That is progress. That is the work. That is how the heart slowly becomes less ruled by fear and more guided by love. You can begin even now with very simple truths. I am learning. I am healing. I am doing my best. I do not need to be perfect and to be worthy. I can speak to myself with kindness, I can release old pressure. I can choose a gentler voice. These are not small statements. They are openings. They are like windows in a room that has been closed for too long. Fresh air enters through them. Light enters through them. Peace enters through them. And with time, the room inside you begins to feel different, less harsh, less dark, less afraid. The old voice may have lived in you for years, but it does not have to be the voice that carries you into the future. There is another voice waiting, a wiser voice, a calmer voice, a voice that tells the truth without wounding you, a voice that says, I see your pain and I will not add more to it. I see your mistake and I will help you learn from it. I see your fear and I will stay with you through it. I see your humanity and I will not turn it into shame. This voice is not far away. It begins the moment you decide that the way you have been speaking to yourself is no longer the way you want to live. And maybe that is the release. Not some dramatic ending, not a sudden, perfect peace, but a quiet decision, a quiet turning, a quiet refusal to keep using your own mind as a place of punishment, a quiet willingness to begin again in a different tone, to answer the old voice with love, to answer pressure with breath, to answer shame with gentleness, to answer fear with presence. That is how the old voice loses its power. Not because you destroy it, but because you stop feeding it, because you stop calling it wisdom, because you begin choosing something truer, something kinder, something that sounds more like healing and more like home. There is great healing in the words you repeat to yourself every day. Many people do not notice this at first because words can seem small. A sentence lasts only a moment. A thought can pass in seconds. But words are not empty. They carry direction. They carry feeling. They carry energy. They begin to shape what the heart believes is possible. They begin to shape what the mind accepts as true. And when a person has spent years repeating harsh thoughts, years saying, I am not enough, I always mess things up, I should be better by now, it leaves a mark. The inner world begins to lean toward pressure without even realizing it. So one of the most loving things you can do is begin to place new words into that space. Not false words, not words used to hide pain, but words that gently lead you back to truth. Affirmations are not magic words that remove all struggle in one moment. They are something quieter and deeper than that. They are reminders. They are seeds. They are a new language for the soul. They help you interrupt the old pattern. They help you pause before the familiar harsh thought takes over. They help you tell your body and your mind that there is an other way to move through life, a softer way, a steadier way, a kinder way. When you repeat an affirmation with sincerity, even if part of you is still learning to believe it, you are already creating a shift. You are telling the old inner voice that it is no longer the only voice in the room. You are making space for compassion. You are making space for peace. One of the simplest truths you may need to repeat is this: I choose peace instead of pressure. Just feel how different those words are from the old way of living. Pressure has been the habit for many people. Pressure to fix everything. Pressure to heal faster. Pressure to do more. Pressure to never make mistakes. Pressure to carry everything alone. Pressure to prove worth through effort and strain. But peace speaks differently. Peace says you do not have to earn the right to breathe. Peace says you do not need to make this moment heavier than it is. Peace says you can still care deeply without punishing yourself. So, when you whisper, I choose peace instead of pressure, you are not avoiding life. You are changing the energy with which you meet it. Another healing affirmation is this: I am enough as I grow. So many people think they will be enough only after they finish healing, only after they become more confident, only after they make fewer mistakes, only after they become more organized, more successful, more calm, more complete. But the heart cannot wait forever to be treated with dignity. The heart needs love now, while growth is still happening. The heart needs acceptance now, while change is still unfolding. So this affirmation matters because it breaks the lie that says worth comes later. It reminds you that growth and worth can exist together. You can still be learning and still be enough. You can still be healing and still be enough. You can still be becoming and still be enough. There is also a great softness in saying, I release harsh thoughts about myself. Notice that this affirmation does not say you must force the old thoughts away. It says you release them. Releasing is gentler than fighting. Releasing allows space. It does not create another battle. It is like opening your hand after holding something too tightly for too long. Harsh thoughts have often been carried out of habit, out of fear, out of old pain. But they do not need to stay forever. Every time you notice one and choose not to hold it so tightly, you are releasing. Every time you answer self-attack with kindness, you are releasing. Every time you refuse to turn your struggle into shame, you are releasing. This is how the heart becomes lighter. Another affirmation that can change the tone of your life is this: I treat myself with love. Such simple words, yet for many people they touch something very deep, because many have been taught to love others, forgive others, support others, be patient with others, but they do not know how to offer the same grace to themselves. They know how to comfort others when they are hurting, but inside their own pain, they become cold. They know how to encourage others when they are trying, but they do not know how to encourage their own heart. This affirmation begins to heal that split. It reminds you that love is not complete if it always moves outward and never inward. It reminds you that your own soul is also worthy of tenderness. There is healing in repetition because the old voice was built through repetition too. It was not created in one day. It became strong because it was repeated again and again. Perhaps through words you heard, perhaps through moments that hurt, perhaps through years of putting pressure on yourself. So it makes sense that a new voice is also strengthened by repetition. Not once, not twice, but over time, quietly, gently, steadily, day after day, moment after moment, especially when you need it most. This is not about saying something perfect. It is about returning to kindness, returning to truth, returning to the kind of inner language that helps healing grow. You may not believe every affirmation fully the first time you say it. That is all right. Healing does not require perfect belief at the beginning. It requires willingness. Willingness to speak differently. Willingness to listen differently. Willingness to stop feeding the old voice and start strengthening a new one. Sometimes you say the words before the heart fully catches up. Sometimes you repeat them while tears are still near. Sometimes you whisper them in the middle of doubt. That still matters. In fact, those may be the moments when they matter most. Because affirmations are not only for the easy days. They are for the days when the old pattern tries to return. They are for the moments when you need a new path through your own mind. You can use these words at the start of the day, before sleep, after a mistake, during stress, while resting, while walking, while breathing, while placing a hand on your heart. You can use them when the old voice rises. You can use them when you notice tightness in your chest. You can use them when you feel behind, ashamed, tired, or too hard on yourself again. That is the beauty of simple words. They can meet you anywhere. They can become a kind of quiet shelter, a way to return to yourself without judgment, a way to remember who you are beneath the pressure. Try speaking these truths slowly inside your heart. I choose peace instead of pressure. I am enough as I grow. I release harsh thoughts about myself. I treat myself with love. Let each sentence land. Let it have a place inside you. Do not rush through the words. Let them touch the places that have been carrying too much. Let them reach the part of you that is tired of being pushed. Let them soften the place inside that has been waiting for permission to rest. There is something powerful that happens when your own voice becomes a place of comfort instead of fear. You begin to feel less alone inside your life. You begin to feel that even when things are hard, you will not abandon yourself. Even when mistakes happen, you will not turn against yourself. Even when healing is slow, You will not use that slowness as a weapon. This changes everything. Because the greatest peace does not come only from the world becoming easier. It also comes from knowing that inside yourself there is finally a kinder place to land. Affirmations are not meant to cover up pain. They are meant to carry light into it. They are not meant to deny what hurts. They are meant to remind you that hurt is not the whole truth. They are not meant to make you pretend. They are meant to help you remember. Remember that you are worthy. Remember that you are learning. Remember that you are not your worst thought. Remember that you do not need to speak to yourself like an enemy. Remember that healing becomes possible when love is allowed to speak more often than fear. So let this become part of your practice now. When pressure rises, answer it with peace. When the old voice rises, answer it with truth. When shame rises, answer it with compassion. When exhaustion rises, answer it with gentleness. Keep the words simple, keep them honest, keep them close. The heart understands simple truth. The soul responds to steady kindness. And the life within you begins to change when the language within you begins to change. Take a slow breath now and allow yourself to arrive fully in this moment. Not in the next hour, not in everything that still needs to be done, not in the past where you have replayed too much already, just here, just now. Let your breath remind you that you are still here, still alive, still worthy of peace in this very moment. You do not have to solve your whole life right now. You do not have to fix every part of yourself right now. You do not have to prove anything right now. For this moment, simply allow yourself to be here. Place a hand on your heart if that feels right. Feel the warmth of your own touch. Feel the quiet message inside that gesture. I am here with you. I am not leaving you in this moment. That alone can be deeply healing because many people have lived for so long in self-pressure that they do not know what it feels like to pause with tenderness. They know how to rush. They know how to judge. They know how to keep going. But they have forgotten how to stay gently present with themselves. So let this be that moment. A moment where you stop moving against yourself. A moment where you become a calm presence for your own heart. Take another slow breath and imagine that with each inhale you are breathing in softness. With each exhale you are releasing pressure. Inhale softness. Exhale pressure. Inhale peace. Exhale tension. Inhale kindness. Exhale the need to be harder on yourself. There is no need to force this. There is no need to do it perfectly. Simply let the breath do what it already knows how to do. Let it open a little more space inside you. Let it remind your body that it does not have to stay in fight mode all the time. Let it remind your heart that peace is still possible here. Now gently notice if there is any guilt you have been carrying, any self-blame, any disappointment in yourself that has become heavy. Maybe it is about something recent. Maybe it is something old. Maybe it is not even one event, but a feeling that has followed you for years. Do not judge what comes up. Just notice. Just allow yourself to see it. Many people rush past these things because they are afraid of feeling them. But healing often begins when you stop running from what hurts and simply hold it with more kindness than before. Imagine that what you have been carrying is resting in your hands for a moment. Not your whole identity, not who you are at the deepest level, just something heavy you have been holding. It may be guilt, it may be pressure, it may be the feeling that you are not doing enough. It may be the belief that you should already be farther along. It may be the voice that keeps saying you are not enough. Just imagine it there, something heavy, but not something you must keep holding forever. Now imagine that in front of you there is a soft, warm light, a peaceful light, a loving light, not harsh, not demanding, just gentle and steady. This light asks nothing from you except honesty. It does not judge what you are carrying. It does not shame you for being tired. It does not turn away from your wounds. It simply receives. It simply holds. It simply reminds you that love is still available, even here, especially here. As you breathe, imagine placing that heaviness into the light. You do not have to throw it. You do not have to force it away. Just place it there gently. Let the guilt rest there. Let the self-blame rest there. Let the pressure rest there. Let the old demand to be perfect rest there. Let the old voice that says you must earn peace rest there. Watch the light hold it without struggle. Watch the light soften it. Watch the light remind you that you do not have to carry everything alone. Some burdens are not meant to stay in your hands forever. Feel what happens inside you as you release even a little. Maybe your breath deepens. Maybe your chest softens. Maybe there is sadness. Maybe there is relief. Maybe there is only a small shift. Even a small shift matters. Healing does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives as one softer breath, one less cruel thought, one moment where the heart realizes it does not have to keep being punished, one moment where the body feels a little safer. Do not overlook that. Small peace is still peace. Small softness is still healing. Small release is still release. Now speak gently inside yourself. I no longer need to carry this with harshness. I can meet myself with love. I can let peace in. I can soften. I can be gentle with myself now. Let those words move slowly through you. No hurry, no pressure. Just truth spoken softly enough for the heart to receive it. If there is a part of you that resists, that is all right. Meet that part with gentleness too. You do not need to force healing. You only need to stay open to it, Imagine now that where the heaviness once sat, something new begins to enter. A quiet calm, a warm peace, a feeling of being held, a feeling of being allowed to rest from the old war inside. Let that peace fill the space that pressure used to occupy. Let that softness reach the places that have been tight for too long. Let that loving energy move through your chest, your shoulders, your mind, your breath. Let it tell your whole being something simple and true. You do not need to be so hard on yourself anymore. There may be a part of you that has become used to pressure, so kindness can feel unfamiliar. That is normal. When the heart has lived under strain for a long time, gentleness may feel strange at first. Stay with it anyway. Let yourself learn this new feeling. Let yourself become familiar with being treated softly by your own inner voice. Let yourself understand that self-kindness is not something weak. It is medicine. It is rest for the soul. It is a return to the truth that love heals what punishment never could. Breathe again and feel the present moment. This breath, this body, this heart, this chance to begin again in a softer way. You do not need to carry all of yesterday into this moment. You do not need to drag every mistake into this breath. You do not need to turn every wound into proof against yourself. For now, simply let this moment be enough. Let this breath be enough. Let this small opening be enough. And if you need a final truth to hold here, let it be this. I am safe to be gentle with myself. I am safe to release pressure. I am safe to heal in love. I am safe to let my heart rest. Repeat that slowly within. Let your body hear it. Let your mind hear it. Let the younger hurting places inside you hear it. They have needed this for a long time. When you are ready, keep that softness with you, not as something dramatic, not as something you must protect perfectly, just as a quiet inner shift, a new tone, a new way of holding yourself, a new willingness to respond with care instead of blame. This is how healing grows. One gentle moment at a time, one kind breath at a time, one soft choice at a time. Once you begin to soften your inner voice, life starts to feel different in small but powerful ways. The outside world may not change all at once. The same tasks may still be there. The same responsibilities may still ask for your attention. The same uncertainties may still exist. But something important begins to change within. You are no longer carrying the extra weight of always standing against yourself. You are no longer adding shame to every hard moment. You are no longer making every human mistake into proof that you are failing. And because of that, even ordinary days begin to feel a little lighter. A new way of moving through life begins with patience, not passive patience. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that understands that growth takes time and the heart deserves kindness while it grows. Many people are hard on themselves because they want to improve quickly. They want healing now. They want peace now. They want to stop struggling now. And while that longing is understandable, it can become another source of pressure if it is not held carefully. Healing does not always move at the speed the mind wants. Some lessons take time. Some wounds need gentleness more than force. Some inner shifts happen slowly, quietly, beneath the surface. Patience allows that process. Patience says, I do not need to attack myself while I am becoming. This new way of living also means speaking differently to yourself on hard days. It is easy to be kind to yourself when you are doing well, when you feel clear, when life seems to be moving smoothly. But the real change happens on the difficult days. The days when you feel tired for no clear reason. The days when emotions rise unexpectedly. The days when you make a mistake. The days when you feel behind. The days when old fears return. Those are the moments when a new inner voice matters most. Instead of saying, "What is wrong with me?" you begin to say, "This is a hard day, and I will move gently through it." Instead of saying, "I should be doing better," you say, "I need a little more kindness right now." Instead of saying, "I am failing," you say, "I am human, and this day will pass." There is deep wisdom in learning not to measure your worth by your hardest moments. So many people do this without even realizing it. One mistake, one emotional reaction, one slow season, one difficult week, and suddenly they begin to question everything about themselves. But a hard moment is not the full truth of who you are. A slow season is not the full truth of your future. A struggle is not the full truth of your value. The new way of living asks you to remember this again and again. It asks you not to make quick judgments about your whole life based on one difficult piece of it. It asks you to hold a wider view, a gentler view, a more faithful view. This new path also invites you to become more careful with comparison. When you are always looking at where someone else seems to be, you lose touch with your own rhythm. You lose respect for your own process. You begin to force yourself into a pace that may not be right for your soul. But healing does not happen well under comparison. Peace does not grow well under constant measuring. A gentler way to live means honoring your own path. It means trusting that your life is not late simply because it looks different. It means knowing that what is unfolding in you may be slower, deeper, quieter, and still beautiful. It means not treating your journey like a failure just because it does not match someone else's timeline. A new way of moving through life also means allowing rest without guilt. This can be very hard for those who have lived under pressure for a long time. They have learned to connect rest with laziness, slowness with weakness, stillness with falling behind. But the soul needs rest. The body needs rest. The heart needs moments where it is not being pushed. Rest is not the opposite of growth. Very often, it is part of growth. Rest is where clarity returns. Rest is where the nervous system softens. Rest is where deeper wisdom can be heard. Rest is where the heart remembers that it does not have to earn every breath. When you stop feeling guilty for needing rest, you begin to live with more balance. And balance is kinder than constant strain. This gentler way of living also changes how you respond to mistakes. Mistakes no longer become a door to shame. They become a door to awareness. You begin asking different questions. Instead of how could I do this, you ask, what can I learn here? Instead of why am I like this, you ask, what support do I need so I can move differently next time? Instead of turning the moment into a judgment about your whole self, you let it be a moment. Important, yes. Worth learning from, yes. But not a sentence against your worth. This frees so much energy. Because shame keeps energy trapped in pain, while awareness helps energy move into growth. Another part of this new life is learning to notice beauty again. A harsh inner voice makes it hard to notice beauty because the mind is too busy scanning for what is wrong. But as kindness grows inside, something else grows too. Presence. You begin to notice a quiet morning, a calm breath, a kind word, a little progress, a moment of rest, a small answer to a prayer, a feeling of steadiness where there used to be panic. These things may seem simple, but they matter deeply. They are signs that your life is changing from the inside out. They are signs that the heart is opening again. They are signs that peace is no longer only something you think about. It is becoming something you actually live. This path also asks you to be patient with the moments when the old pattern returns. There may still be days when you speak sharply to yourself, days when the pressure comes back, days when the old voice feels strong again. Do not turn those moments into another reason to be hard on yourself. That would only repeat the same pattern in a new form. Instead, let those moments become reminders. Reminders to pause. Reminders to come back. Reminders to choose again. Healing is not about never slipping into an old pattern. It is about learning how to return more quickly, more gently, more wisely. Every return matters. Every moment of noticing matters. Every act of self-kindness matters. When you move through life with more gentleness, your relationships begin to change too. People who are always hard on themselves often carry that same tension into how they receive love, how they set boundaries, how they ask for support, how they handle conflict. But when the inner world becomes kinder, it becomes easier to receive care without suspicion. Easier to speak honestly without shame. Easier to say no without feeling guilty. Easier to let yourself be seen without immediately assuming you will be judged. In this way, self-kindness does not only change the relationship you have with yourself, it changes the energy you bring into every part of life. A gentler life does not mean a passive life. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you care in a healthier way. It means you still show up, but not with inner violence. You still grow, but not through constant self-rejection. You still want more for your life, but you no longer believe you must become smaller inside in order to get there. You begin to understand that peace is not the reward at the end of perfection. Peace can walk with you now. Kindness can walk with you now. Support can walk with you now. This makes the whole path feel different, not empty of challenge, but richer in grace. There is quiet power in deciding that from now on, you will no longer speak to yourself in ways that crush your own spirit. There is quiet power in deciding that healing will be guided by love. There is quiet power in deciding that your worth will not rise and fall with each day's performance. There is quiet power in deciding that you are worthy of the same tenderness you so easily offer to others. These decisions may not look dramatic from the outside, but inside they change the whole direction of your life. So as you move forward from here, take this new way with you. On busy days, move with kindness. On slow days, move with patience. On painful days, move with compassion. On uncertain days, move with trust. Let your inner voice become a place of refuge rather than pressure. Let your heart become a place where healing can stay. Let your life become less about proving and more about allowing. Less about pyo, nishing, and more about understanding. Less about fear and more about love. Because in the end, healing grows best in a gentle heart, not a perfect heart, not a heart that never struggles, not a heart that always knows what to do, a gentle heart, a heart willing to begin again, a heart willing to soften, a heart willing to stop making itself the enemy. That is the new way, and it is a beautiful way to live. You do not need to be so hard on yourself anymore. Let those words settle into you slowly, not as an idea to admire from a distance, but as a truth your heart is allowed to receive. You have carried enough. You have judged yourself enough. You have replayed enough, blamed enough, pressured yourself enough. And maybe for a long time, it felt like that harshness was necessary. Maybe it felt like the only way to stay responsible, the only way to stay moving, the only way to keep your life together. But now you know something deeper. You know that peace cannot grow where the soul is always being punished. You know that healing needs kindness. You know that growth becomes stronger when it is rooted in love. You are not broken because you have struggled. You are not weak because you have needed time. You are not failing because some parts of your life are still unfolding. You are not behind because your path has asked for a slower pace. You are not less worthy because you still have tender places within you. You are human. You are becoming. You are learning. And there is so much grace in that. There is so much beauty in that. There is so much life still unfolding in you, even now, even here. Think about how much changes when you stop fighting yourself. The breath becomes softer. The chest becomes lighter. The mind becomes clearer. The heart no longer has to hide from its own inner voice. There is more room for peace, more room for trust, more room for rest, more room for real growth. This is not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you stop making every imperfect moment into a personal attack. You stop turning your own soul into a place of pressure. You begin to create a home inside yourself where healing is possible, and that may be the greatest gift you can give yourself. Not another promise to do better through fear, not another demand to become perfect, not another tight grip on every part of your life, but a softer presence, a kinder tone, a willingness to stay with yourself through the unfinished parts, a willingness to say, I am still worthy here. I am still lovable here. I am still allowed to rest here. I am still allowed to begin again here. These are not small gifts. These are life-giving gifts. They change the way you carry every burden. They change the way you meet every challenge. They change the way you wake up and the way you rest at night. So when the old voice rises again, and at times it may, I remember what is true. You do not have to follow it. You do not have to believe every harsh thought that passes through your mind. You do not have to keep repeating what pain once taught you. You can pause. You can breathe. You can place a hand on your heart. You can choose a different response. You can say, I will not speak to myself this way anymore. I will not make this moment harder than it already is. I will meet myself with love. I will move gently. I will begin again. That is strength. That is wisdom. That is healing. Let yourself remember, too, that you do not need to earn your own compassion. You do not need to finish all your healing before you deserve tenderness. You do not need to become a perfect version of yourself before you are allowed to feel peace. Peace belongs here. Compassion belongs here. Love belongs here. Right in the middle of your life as it is, right in the middle of your process, right in the middle of your humanity, this is where healing begins. Not later, not after everything is fixed. Here. If you have been waiting for permission to soften, let this be your permission. If you have been waiting for a sign that you can stop carrying so much self-blame, let this be your sign. If you have been waiting for a new way to live with yourself, let this be the beginning. You can speak kindly to yourself. You can release harshness. You can move through life with more patience. You can trust that being gentle with yourself will not make you weaker. It will make you more whole, more steady, more open to love, more able to live from peace instead of fear. And when you forget, come back to the simplest truths. I choose peace instead of pressure. I am enough as I grow. I release harsh thoughts about myself. I treat myself with love. These words can become like little lights along your path. They can guide you on the difficult days. They can steady you when old patterns return. They can remind you that your inner world does not have to be a place of punishment anymore. It can become a place of healing, a place of grace, a place of return. So move forward with a softer heart now. Not a careless heart, not a heart that gives up, but a heart that knows love works more deeply than shame. A heart that knows peace is not earned by punishment. A heart that knows healing needs room to breathe. A heart that knows it is safe to be gentle. There is such beauty in the person you are becoming when you stop standing against yourself. There is such freedom in no longer being your own hardest burden. There is such peace in finally learning how to walk through life with yourself instead of against yourself. And if all you remember from this moment is one simple truth, let it be this: you deserve your own kindness too. As this time comes to a close, take one more slow breath and let yourself feel the quiet truth of everything that has been placed before your heart. You do not need to keep carrying your life with such harshness. You do not need to keep proving your worth through pressure. You do not need to keep turning every mistake into a reason to withhold love from yourself. A softer way is possible. A kinder way is possible. A more peaceful way is possible. And it begins not somewhere far away, but here, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you hold yourself, in the way you choose to move through this very moment. Let the past be what it has been. Let the old voice be what it was. Let the years of pressure be enough now. You are allowed to step into something new. You are allowed to release the need to be your own judge. You are allowed to become your own safe place. You are allowed to meet your life with compassion instead of blame. This does not erase your growth. It deepens it. It does not make you weak. It makes you whole. It does not take away your responsibility. It gives responsibility a kinder home inside you. So from this moment on, may you remember to pause before you punish yourself. May you remember to breathe before you believe the harsh thought. May you remember that healing is not asking for perfection. It is asking for presence, patience, and love. May you remember that your heart is not a place to attack. It is a place to tend, a place to listen to, a place to guide gently, a place where peace can grow again. Carry this with you now. On the days when you feel strong, and on the days when you feel uncertain, on the days when life flows easily, and on the days when old pain rises, speak to yourself as someone worthy of care. Hold yourself as someone still becoming. Trust that kindness is not too little. Kindness is the way. And as you go forward, let this truth stay close to your heart. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be real, to heal, to grow, and to love yourself enough to stop being so hard on your own soul.